mean,
And do
in
you
a
find,
nutshell.
do you think that that was really instrumental for you between transitioning from the first startup to the second?
No, I wasn't there yet when I transitioned there, but there was a lot of anxiety, there was a lot of suffering. I had like all sorts of back pain and all.
Hmm.
I mean, no, it wasn't fun at all. I mean,
Hmm.
at all. But I think right now there's an opportunity to grow in the material plane and in the spiritual plane at the same time, because I don't think you grow in the material plane unless you grow on the spiritual plane, and it goes hand in hand.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. It was interesting. I actually read something today that talked about startups shutting down and how shutting down a startup in the startup world is not like shutting down a company in the corporate world, where many startups, for a variety of reasons, have to go dormant and they have to really pare down to bare bones in order to revamp. It could be your co-founder leaves you, it could be you ran out of money, it could be a variety of reasons, but it doesn't mean it's the end of the company. And if you're a founder who's really willing to fight for the vision that you have before that inspired you to build the company, you just come back stronger and better a couple months later, maybe sometimes even a year later. Um, and I was wondering if you ever had that experience with when you were working with Be Visible and you decided to shut down. Sometimes founders struggle with, should I shut down and revamp, or should I just pack it in and move on?
I mean, that was a great question. It was so hard to shut down. First of all, I talked to all my investors to make sure that they were okay, and they were all super supportive and amazingly supportive. I have had a bad experience with a partner investor at the time, so it wasn't like a great relationship there. So it was a very wise to shut down and start from zero, and everybody understood. And he wanted something else, and I wanted something else, and it was a growth experience for both of us, I'm sure. But I found new partners, new people to work with, and that believed in the concept of that I was trying to get with Be Visible, which was similar, right? It was bringing more underrepresented people to the table, if you will,
Hmm.
giving more opportunities, right? This is exactly what I'm doing with Wallbreakers. I couldn't do it with Be Visible because the companies didn't care in general about talent that was underrepresented. They just care about software engineers, maybe, and that has taken us a while. So it's not even that obvious, even in that case.
Hmm.
But it was hard. But I followed the advice of people that I trusted in, and they said, like, look, right now you are the company. It doesn't matter if you shut down. Like you are. I mean, you need to start something else. Like need to start from zero. And yeah, so the most important thing is that my investors that were all very close, almost all, uh, basically were very, very supportive and said, yes, please, Andrea, do it. That's good. It's good. I think that, that
And
I think that that's the hardest part for me, was kind of like I didn't want to disappoint my investors, and that was like I
mhm.
felt very strong about that. But they were all, I mean, 100% supportive.
Well, that certainly makes it a lot easier. And now with Wallbreakers, it sounds like obviously you're post revenue, and financially the company is in solid footing, and you're kind of on your way. Do you have a staff now? Do you have a small staff or a large staff?
No, we have staff. We have a small group, but we are now is the decision whether we scale, like how do we scale, and what
Mhm.
type of like financing do we use to scale? Do we use, still our equity, do we use uh, debt, and all these things, that all these decisions that have to be made.
Mhm.
And so I will not say that we are, super, firm. Everything is firm, because in the startup world, things change so much, and cash is very important. But I think the issue is that it's like, how do you now? How do you want to scale? And do you want, kind of those answers are important.
Yeah, and there's important questions because it impacts a lot of your potential growth and also potential wealth as a founder when you start giving away pieces of the business in order to raise more and more capital. So it does
Exactly.
have a big impact. So I'm wondering if we could talk a little bit about, I know that you talk often about the spiritual side of things, and I'm wondering how your spiritual life has helped you kind of navigate your work in the startup world.
Yeah, no, I think that a little bit what we're talking about, this thing of being trying to be more present, right? And it's something that we're gonna start offering. In fact, with Wallbreakers, we're gonna start offering a wellness program because new grads, as entrepreneurs, as anyone that is kind of going through a transition that is so huge, and especially from underrepresented backgrounds with COVID, Black Lives Matter, and everything that is happening in the country, they need support, and so it's not only for entrepreneurs, but everything that I learned spiritually, I will want to pass it to even the people that are starting jobs. And I think what it is actually this awareness. I would say that it's the constant awareness and practice of understanding what story you're telling yourself, and that's part of the controlling the anxiety, controlling the so when you just focus on the thing at hand, you put your best foot forward, your intention, and you let and release everything else. I think you're happier, right? Then you become grateful, and then you're happier, and I think you have this trust in the process. All these things help you flow more, have better ideas, more in tune with your intuition, make better decisions, know what to do next. All these things that are
Hmm.
can be blocked at any time by your anxiety and your fear and
Hmm.
your over nervousness about things.
100%. If there's an entrepreneur out there who's struggling right now to make some decisions early stage in his or her company, um, what one piece of advice would you share with him or with her that you wish someone had told you early on in your journey?
Make it economically viable, because I also had a little bit of the luxury to have, opportunities to do those. It was always uncomfortable, but it was a little bit. In other words, I think never be so uncomfortable that you can't think creatively. Because if you're like financially super uncomfortable, then you cannot think super creatively because you're like stressed out all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So even though it's going to be uncomfortable, try to make it the least uncomfortable possible. So keep your job as long as possible. I
Mm-hmm.
would say, no, don't quit your job. Let's say I would say, like, quit your job when you find the business model. Don't quit your job before the business model.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, if you
Right.
found the business model, please quit your job. Or
Right.
if you fundraise, please quit your job. But I mean, for
Mm-hmm.
women, for people of underrepresented backgrounds, it's hard that, fundraise. I mean, I don't know, that was not for everybody's an option, and not at the level that is needed to, create a company, support yourself, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I will add to that whether you stay in your job or whether you have a side hustle that
Right.
can be supportive of your, covering your financial commitments, that is clearly really helpful. And I do agree, if you're financially constrained, you're constantly in a state of fear. So
Exactly.
it is really difficult to think clearly, in particular if you have a lot of commitments. Well, I think you raised some excellent points, Andrea, and I believe that there's going to be a lot more that we're going to hear from your exciting venture, Wallbreakers, and I'm so excited for you. And it's always so inspiring when you talk to founders who say, "Hey, I'm a serial entrepreneur. My first three companies crashed and burned. My fourth was a success," because I think it encourages all of us that it's never too late. Keep at it. Sometimes things don't work out the first time, but you learn from them and you move on.
Absolutely. I mean, and sometimes it's okay to go get a job in between. It's totally fine. I got a job in between too. So
Absolutely.
it happens.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for being on Startup Hacks today. I want to give you an opportunity to share with our listeners a way that they could contact you if they have any questions about your company or you. Is there a website you'd like to share?
You can contact me on LinkedIn, Andrea Gwendelman, or Wallbreakers, contact@wallbreakers.com, or my website, andreagwendelman.com. Anyway, I would
Great.
love to talk to you.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much. And tune in
Thank
next
you.
week. Yes, tune in next week for more startup hacks. We have another great show you won't want to miss on the secret female founder strategies that can save you time and money when building your business. This podcast is brought to you by Women Entrepreneurs Global, the first startup studio and digital do-it-yourself startup platform for women. For more information on our guests, this podcast, and many other female founder programs, please visit womenentrepreneurs.global. I'm your host, Fernanda Carapina, and we will see you next week. Thank you for joining Startup Hack. Tune in next week for more interviews. We have another great show you won't want to miss on the secret female founder strategies that can save you time and money when building your business. This podcast is brought to you by Women Entrepreneurs Global, the first startup studio and digital do-it-yourself startup platform for women. For more information on our guests, this podcast, and many other female founder programs, please visit womenentrepreneurs.global. I'm your host, Fernanda Carapina. See you next week.